forward with retirement. Cynthia Rubik, retiring from administrative services. Reclassification, there are 3 different reclassifications. So sometimes we look at what we've assigned somebody to do. There was originally what they were hired to do, and then what they end up doing. So instead of hiring another person to do work, if you start reassigning that work to somebody else, but it's at a higher level, then we put them at that higher level. So those would be the 3 that we did. One, which was Kathy Washburn, promotion, but he passed over to
Motion was made by Ed, seconded by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Agreements, contracts, and MOUs.
There. Okay. So these 2 here, the reason I wanted to leave those on there, and that's what we're talking about. These 2 here, I left them on there that I removed them. The reason being is that they were the noticeable ones. And to cover our bases, Joanne put them on there, applications, that we were applying for a grant, but also the notice and voting. But right now, it's happening so fast, they're putting it in, we have to start working on it 3 months before you can get the contract. It didn't used to be like that years ago. But in this case, I left those on there instead of moving them, so that you knew what I was doing. What happened. That we removed that because we made it a separate item. We made it as part of a resolution. It was put in there, and that's okay. Staff does that, I wanted to make, I want them to be able to free to use it. So once I saw like a non-resolution, when I made that separate and put it in, that we vote on it separately. So that way I left it in just so you see what's going on in the background. And if you have any questions on any of the answers or the contract. Yes, sir. That's why I just was showing you that the staff generates this, and it comes from your input. We have where is the money going, where does it stay, what program is it in. So they generate this list, and then we talk about it. We have a separate grants committee meeting, all this stuff. Well, we kind of know, we know what contracts are coming in. But in this case, even though that they had populated it, I wanted to, on the error side of caution, populate it. And then we determined where it should be. Should it be contract under use, or should it be something separate?
I need to approve agreement contract. Why are we extending those top 2? Are we extending because we didn't meet the goal?
These right here?
Yeah, because it was like, we had so many people lined up.
No,
They're extending the lifespan of the grant. So the dollar amounts of those contracts are actually unchanged. I think with verse 2, they have more time now to spend on their contract because the grant year has been extended. This is from the Ohio Department of Medicaid. The Community Action Agency one, there is some additional funding that was added to that because they spent through their contract in the original allocated amount.
Do we meet the goals? Do we reach out to
We will be meeting the goals, yeah, we will be meeting the goals, but, they're actually meeting the goals to it, so they'll have until the end of the year now to spend down the funds on the personnel and the, work needed to meet the needs for the workers and people.
No. Any other questions? All right, we have a current motion on the table, we just need a second. All right, motion was made by Pat, seconded by Nancy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Out of county travel request.
Motion approved by county travel.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ed, seconded by Pat. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Recommendations from the hearing officer.
Oh, which one do you want up, Justin?
Pick any of them.
All right, there's
All right, so we had a sewage nuisance The revenue came in and we made a table for a month to allow them to apply for our grant funding. Which is
So no action on that one, right?
no action on that.
Okay, all right, now you've got, the sewage connection.
These are sewer tie-ins. These are the ones that where if the sanitary sewer is inaccessible, they have to tie into it, and then there's household sewage treatment system. We're just working through our list, doing 5 at a time. These ones here, Center Ridge Road. These 5 properties have all been notified over several years, and just keeping with everything that we've been doing so far, our precedent is just giving them 6 months.
And then nuisance.
The nuisances here, this has been working tremendously well. A lot of times when they get the notice to come to hearings, and they get them cleaned up, and a couple of these are cleaned up. All the ones on here, some of them have been, actually because they're abated. All of them on here we've been giving in 10 days, except for the case of one that they asked for 2 weeks, we're giving 14 days. We also affirmed some of the health commissioner emergency orders. There's some situations where the property is unsafe and sanitary for human occupation, where in that case, when it's that bad, we could actually go in and post an order. The health commissioners has that jurisdiction required to availability based on resolution passed in 2005.
You know, would you go back to the one right before that, the veteran? Would you just tell the board about what happened with that?
There was a situation where there was a police chase, that's the one of the pictures of where a police chase in the city of Elyria, and the house ended up, the car ended up going to the corner of this gentleman's house. And, he's an older gentleman, he's a veteran, and he spent all his money, getting a contractor to come up with this kind of structurally secure the home and board it aside, but then when the building department were out there, they noticed some working conditions. So we went out there and found out that because of the damage of the house, he had to shut off his water, he had no water, no leaking in the bathroom, he was living in a camper in the back. So in that case, I connected him to some services that we have in the county, we had weddings and other things, and our Lorraine building inspector was here, he says he knows someone that goes in and helps veterans clean up their place. So the case of this one is that the gentleman wants help. He wants this cleaned out, he wants to be able to live in his home. You know, he's done this, he just wants to, live out his life in a nice clean home. So we're gonna be working on setting up and getting him help with some dumpsters and get that cleared out, and get his water turned back on so he can enjoy his home.
I just wanted the board to hear, some of the things aren't just cut and dry, clean up or whatever. The staff is also working to help some of these people with their living conditions and that, so I think they're a great thing to do.
This one was the emergency house, that, each of the rooms, the picture, it only had the one picture of house room. Had no bathroom, each of the rooms were filled with waste, animal excrement, and there were 12 people inside the house. 8 of them ended up being arrested and taken. Here's where the loot was being also stored. They're being investigated for theft as well. This house a year ago, a picture of it a year ago, you would not be able to tell that they were the little rows. It'd be a great idea, those bags. Let them stay there once you fill it up, because they don't realize, oh no, you pay your $125. Great. Tires.
And it seems like Lorraine is really active in helping with some of these kind of things. The city of Lorraine.
I didn't see that one. I want the board to know that next table that when you vote on this, you just, if you approve it, the report, the table is right there. And then no action is taken on this, that one.
off with this.
You'll cut their head off.
Yeah, so it's authorizing us to take further action. Do you wanna talk about it?
So as of right now, once we give them again, and they agree with the story, they may be in compliance, that's awesome. If not, at this point, we have the city of Elyria is on board, so we've given them a bunch from our last board meeting, once they have not come into compliance, we've given them a bunch, and their police department's actually going out there, and starting the next action, the legal proceeding with legal, so. We're in talks with the city of Lorraine, police department, we've made contact with them, it's kind of been back and forth, we're close with them. And then we're talking right now with, Oberlin as well, to see if their, court system judges will be on board. See if they can start that process. So the
Oh, and
building,
if I
yeah, the
supposed
building,
to-
no, the building department gentleman that was in
Right.
mentioned that they're in the works with potentially getting a animal control officer in the city of Lorraine. So if that's the case, that might make things a little easier, coming.
How does one get on this list?
Animal bite occurs, so once the exposure occurs, we need to go out and investigate it. We determine whether the animal, has current vaccination or not. So we watch to make sure that the animal has lived past its 10 days. So that way we know it's not gonna be able to transmit rabies to the victim. But at that point, under state law, they still have to have the dog vaccinated against rabies. So now they start the enforcement process. Hey, you didn't turn in this information, you need to go turn it in. Second letter goes out, and then if they don't comply with that, then they get a board citation to appear to explain why they haven't, at least let us know something. And if they don't let us know something, then they're on the list in front of the board, and then that gives us permission to go further.
Normally though, they also either end up in an urgent care or ER because the bites were.
Yes, that's how we find out, is
That's
that
how you find out about it.
it's usually not self-reported, almost all of them are rabies contact infections.
I should know this, but no, it's state law that all animals, domestic animals, cats and dogs.
Just dogs. Just the dogs, most boards have included cats and ferrets as well.
State law though?
State law for dogs for sure.
Okay.
How about raccoons?
You can catch them? No, that's where the rabies program, that's something we kind of talked about as well. The state, runs a rabies vaccination program along the eastern portion of the state because the vast majority of rabid raccoons are on the Pennsylvania side. So for the last 25 years, they take small planes called twin otters up and down eastern counties and drop baits. That's a fish meal bait with a sachet of vaccine in it. The raccoon starts eating the fish meal bait because they really like this. It's made specifically for them. Once they bite into this sachet, they're so, and then they do a lot of testing along those eastern counties to determine how that vaccination piece is working. It's working actually pretty well. There was some breakout this year. We just had a positive raccoon in Cuyahoga County. Something that hasn't happened very often is that there is breakthrough this way. So the only way to stop it is, and has been for the last 80 years, is the forceful vaccination by law of dogs.
Motion to approve the hearing officer recommendations. Moved by Kiana, seconded by Ed. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Christine, you're on deck.
Thank you. I do have a matter for executive session regarding imminent court action of the legal services report. I just wanted to follow up with the board regarding bylaws and see if there was any movement or interest in additional edits, but if not, that's all I have for you.
And I can send it back out to everybody as well. It's not on the agenda to talk about it, but I can send it back out so that you can all go through it.
I think we could use some guidance on, I know they were drawn up before several years ago, I've heard.
2017, they did a survey.
But then they were not enforced or enacted. Why?
don't know. So I did reach out to Dave, Dave Coble, through the survey itself, and it just asked very, very general questions during the combination piece. So the survey that went out with the board members only was based upon the combination of the health department. So the questions then, as to whether we need bylaws were pertaining, when they were answering the questions, it was because of this combination occurring. So that kind of scraps that survey as to, because it was a different reason as to why it happened. So if you wanted to, here's the opportunity, this board, it's in a completely different realm, that you get to answer it for yourself instead of, but back then it was where we felt that we didn't need bylaws. So the result that it came out was that there were 2 that were stringently against, there were 4 that were, okay, let's have them, and there were 2 that said, let's get them. Let's have bylaws. But again, that was in the context of we're a combined health department, we have new board members coming in, what do we do?
And didn't we speak or talk a couple months ago that there's a loss of flexibility for the board?
We'll both have an answer for that as well. My answer is that the law guides what the board should do, but there are some things that it does not guide you on. For one, if both you and Patty are gone, then who runs the board meeting? Well, that's happened before. I ended up running the board meeting. I've never had that. So usually the bylaws would then say, here's who has to do it. Another thing is what happens if you have a board member that never comes to a meeting. So without the bylaws, the law doesn't say what to do. So without the bylaws, that what do you make up at that point? You just wing it. And we had that situation. And the only way to address it without bylaws is by multiple phone calls and suggesting highly that they relook at the person they have assigned to the board. But there's no guarantee that happens, and if they're not here, then that always counts against your farm. The other would be is that, and you can define how it is if you want, when you want attendance, but the other would be is that when it comes to definition of who's on the board, that's in the contract. So the bylaws are really just restating what's in the contract. For me, there are 2 different sets of information that we're drawing how we govern. One is the contract that exists from 2017 in the combination of health departments, which also reflects 4 other contracts going back to 1962, and then state law. So, but there's not one document that holds those 2 together on how this board governs. So that's where I'm coming from when it comes to bylaws.
So more or less to give us some guidance in
And
unusual circumstances.
instead of every health commissioner coming up going, all right, let's go back and look at the contract from 2017 and let's figure out what do we do from this point on. But you can always change the bylaws as well. They're yours. I mean, if you go with them, they're yours to change. They're not mine. They're your document.
Why would people be advocating against it?
That was not in it. So that was something you could not tell me why they were advocating against it.
What do other neighboring health departments do?
Medina does not, Cuyahoga does, Summit County does, Stark County does, Canton does, Huron does, Erie does not, Ottawa does not. There were a few that when we were sitting around and talking.
Bylaws is, you don't have bylaws and you just kind of run meetings any way you want. You have bylaws is kind of gives you how you're supposed to operate meetings and function as a group. The thing is, you have to follow them. A lot of times groups have bylaws and they just ignore them and do whatever the heck they want anyway. That's probably why the people didn't want to do it. They said, we've been doing fine, why do we need them, now we got all.
It reduces the power of one person as well, so the president doesn't take control of the board. I believe that it evens the power out, instead of where, so that's the thing. I mean, that's kind of where, that if you do them, that's what you would do them for. When it comes to the, how the agenda, stuff like that, the board can tell me what they want on their agenda. So I have that agenda listed in the bylaws. You can tell me what you want. You want to hear where some board members that wanted to hear reports from the members. Nobody said, no, I don't want to hear them, but you as a board get to agree on what you want to hear. Right now, I'm kind of guessing, and I'm saying, oh, you want to hear from them, so that's why they're talking every night.
We've told you that we wanted to hear something.
Yes, sir.
We said like that, on a monthly or quarterly basis from somebody on there,
Right.
and someone will stand up and talk about all their stuff, and what they're doing.
Right, and
I'm not
that's,
against them, not for it, I don't care.
yeah, and it just, it's, so let's say that, you know, board members, are the same board members. The new ones that come on, why do we do what it is that we do? That's, so that's really all it is. They're not on the agenda to vote on. They're yours to, when you're ready to act, if you want them on the agenda, you can tell Tom, put them on the agenda, and I'll put them on the agenda.
Do you wanna look at it again? I
I
would.
mean, they're still
I
very
just
much
haven't
in
done
draft
that.
form, I would
Yeah.
say, yeah, I would definitely recommend that you take a look at it.
Yeah, I'd like to.
There's definitely changes that you made, but then it also, you can reread them, show you the general outline, you know, of different, for when different items come up, that could be something that's in your bylaws, that would give you some guidance on how to handle those things.
And I'd really love for you to have a personnel and finance committee, at the minimum of finance committee, so that the board is involved in the development of the budget. Like if it's 3 members, you get 3 members that would be on it, you're involved in the development of the budget. Instead of coming in as a message, you're involved in every aspect of that.
I would like to see us happen. So I'm in agreement with, sending them out again.
I'll send them out again, yeah, we'll do.
You said a finance committee, what was the other?
Personnel. So when it comes to, development of the pay charts, the pay scales, we need to look at that again. It's been a long time since that's been looked at. And it's not that I want to just create something and present it to the board, I'd like you to be involved in looking at our salary structure, looking at comparisons, because I get the comparisons with other health departments, what is it that they do, what do we do? You can't always, it's not always apples to apples, but, it makes it, I feel very confident if I'm trying to tell the board something, I'm not just relying on that you trust me, that you're part of the process as well.
And Blaine,
And Blaine, you got it.
You can do that without bylaws.
You can, yes. In Henry County, we had both the personnel and finance committee, and we did not have bylaws.
All right, motion to approve legal services report.
So moved.
second.
Moved by Pat, seconded by Ed, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Leadership reports.
AD.
I just want to recognize 2 of my staff members that are retiring and thank them for their years of service. Sue Lorbach retired last month. She had 24 years of experience, 7.5 here and 16.5 with Elyria City. And then Cindy Grubick is retiring at the end of this month, and she just approved. She has 32 years of experience. These are just 2 out of 7 that are eligible to retire within my division, and we have 18 people, so that's 39% of my division will be leaving within a few years, maybe 4 years or so. Then I wanted to look at the bigger picture while I mentioned that. So Lorraine County Public Health had 12 retirements over the last 3 years. We've had 4 so far, including these 2 of this year. And then we have an additional 18 staff that are eligible to retire now, that you'll see over the next few years. So that's 15% of our overall staff that will be changing and getting some younger faces in. And just a couple other fun facts on personnel. We currently have 115 staff members, 87 are full-time, 28 are part-time, of which 24 of those are school nurses and work pretty much during the school year. Our FTE count is 105 employees. We also have 5 substitutes that help us out with school nursing and WIC, and we have 14 interns this year.
Debbie, you did great on time.
I have a question, I might mess it up. I'm sorry, sorry, it's my heart. What does the public health, what do you all do for your retirees? Does it vary, is it a card, what do you do?
We do a gift from the board, and then we also take a collection from the staff, and then give them a gift, using that money, and if they want a party, we have a
is all 2024 data. So as of, the end of June, we've had 354 complaints, for this year. 151 of those complaints, have been abated, and or corrected, by the homeowner himself or herself, without any, basically just us going out there and saying, hey, there's an issue. 42 properties had no public health nuisance at all, so we went out there and there's no issue when we went out there. 40 cases were closed, either due to a referral, lost the follow-up, so maybe due to, we referred it to, building department because it was a structural issue and we couldn't really take care of it on our end. And sometimes we just basically provided education to them, so we closed about that. At this time, 68 are being investigated, and there's, of those 68, 51 have been issued a order at this point, in 2024. 27 cases have been referred to the Board of Health, and then 14 Board of Health orders have been issued at this time, in 2024. And then just at this time, there's 31 properties that are awaiting cleanup, removal, and or abatement. There's 23 properties from 2023, and there's 8 cases from 2024. Which leads me to that point of, we're right there, the city of Elyria, we've been in discussion with the judges. We have up to another sentence to community service, so we're going to provide them, they're going to get their community service hours working with cleaning up some of these properties. So we've, we got the big van back there, we got the trailer ready to go, so we're starting August, properties in Elyria City awaiting cleanup, so that's a good site for a good start to that program. So I'm not.
Yeah, you did. Okay. All right, population health.
All right, I'm gonna share some information out tonight about, tobacco and the work we do with tobacco prevention and cessation. We just wrapped up our tobacco grant with ODH. We've had this funding for, I don't know, at least. Well, I'll say this grant is 2023, 2024, so this grant is 2023. We passed a tobacco-free policy with the Elyria Public Library System. Over the past 5 to 10 years, we have worked with a number of entities on passing tobacco-free policies. They usually come to us with questions about verbiage to put in their policy. They've tweaked a lot of their policies to include language about vaping. And so we help community partners with that if that's something they're interested in. We push out a lot of promotion for the Stay Quit line through our channels, including the Stay Quit line that's available for youth. So yes, that exists. If the youth is struggling to quit either vaping or combustible tobacco, there is a Quit Line Junior that they can be referred to. And over the past year, about 170 Lorain County residents utilized the tobacco quit line and were able to go through the process free of charge with a counselor on the tobacco quit line to lead to cessation. We also have a contract with Lakata, so we have a Lakata's already in the schools doing prevention education, so we provide some contract funding to them just to make sure they're including evidence-based curriculum and best practices about vaping. And so over the past year, the prevention educators that we contract with at Lakata were able to directly reach out and provide education about vaping and prevention to over 1,500 students in Lorain County schools. And then if you saw a couple weeks ago, we put out a media release about our compliance checks. So there's a number of different entities that do compliance checks in the county, and we're one of them. We have underage informants that go into stores and attempt to make a purchase of a tobacco product. So this year they did 70 stores, that was a sample size, and 12 sales were made, which is around 17%. Over the past 3 years, that number has actually decreased. So back in 2021, we started at 27%, and it's gone down a percent or two every year. And we do credit some of this to just more awareness and education that Tobacco 21 is a policy that is in effect. It has been in effect since 2019. And we don't punish these store owners or managers or clerks. We don't involve law enforcement. We send them a little nudge that just says, hey, remember, don't do that. And here's some education materials if you need them. And so yeah, that's kind of our synopsis of tobacco for the past year.
Awesome. Wick.
All right, hello. Tonight I just want to quickly touch on one of the goals that we're working on in WIC that fall under our strategic plan, so the expanding operations category. We have been looking to relocate our Lorraine WIC clinic site. So we have two sites. We have one here in the health department and then one out of the health and ministry building. The one in Lorraine services about 55% of our caseload, which is about 2,500 people every single month. And so I wanted to just talk about, it is a big undertaking, and I wanted to kind of let the board know there are some things that we're doing to make sure that that we are gathering input from participants, and analyzing a lot of data to make sure that this move is in the best interest of the residents of Lorraine County. So one way that we're looking at this clinic site would be a survey of our participants. So we did do an accessibility survey to find out how people get to us. So interestingly, it's a lot of, it is actually a lot of driving cars, sharing cars. We're also looking at what are the areas, maps of the areas that most of our participants are located in and live in. We're looking at vendor rejection rates. So what are the WIC-approved vendors all across Lorraine County? Which are the stores that are receiving the most amount of shoppers from the WIC program? And then, of course, taking all of these pieces of data and going out and actually viewing sites to find out what might be the next best home here for the WIC program. So it's something that you'll hear more about in the coming months. We really are making a push over the next couple months to have an agreement here, here for, and get our staff and our participants at the county site here as well. So we'll hear more.
Thanks, Marissa.
Why do we have to move?
It's a mutual, but health and dentistry is going in a different direction with the rental space that we have right there now. They are going to be doing a pharmacy in our space, which is kind of typical for hospital systems and that's the for-profit health center here in the county. On the same token, we've been expanding, so we still continue to be at about 112 or 115% caseload. I could really use an extra room or two, run a little bit bigger of a clinic. So it's time for both of us, I think, to kind of just go different directions, but we remain great, have a great relationship. So
Oh, yeah.
we continue to refer to each other.
They're in a closet. They're in a hallway. I mean, it's just the nice building, and then all of a sudden you go into WIC and it's a yellow brick hallway. So it's not a renovated space. So when you go to the they just decided not to enact the lease, and we had the new lease agreement, the month-to-month here a few months ago, so. Joanne?
I just wanted to go over our Narcan program a little bit. Some of you know we have been part of Project Dawn for 10 years now. We've been 2014. Project Dawn is an educational Narcan distribution program. And we've been able to make really good strides over the last 10 years. Some of the state level have changed over the years to allow entities to actually become providers where they can actually distribute Narcan, which before we used to have like a distribution license to do so. So most of it came through us. But since those laws have changed, we've really been able to expand our services. We built a lot of community partnerships, working with our first responders, with our local schools, with churches. Community partners all throughout Lorraine. And so some of our numbers to date, just for this year alone, we've given out over 1,000 Narcan kits already, and 200 of those have been via our mail service, so you can get online with the QR code and you can mail out those barriers. We've given out 253 kits to our first responders. We do know that when we give out our kits, we ask if it's a replacement, we find out what happens after they've had. And so that allows us to track the data on how many were actually used for reversals. And we've had over 118 known reversals this year alone. Overdose deaths are down this year. According to the coroner, we are having 28 deaths for this year compared to
also had some additional, grant funding that's come our way. We have 2 grants right now that help support these activities. They help pay for personnel time, they pay for supplies, and they help us with our messaging and our outreach. One of the activities through the grants is what's called an Alox box, and that's, like a freestanding box that an agency can put, that has Narcan in it, where anybody in the community can go up and take it. It isn't just if someone's having a reaction, if you were walking by and you needed one, you had it for personal use, you could take it. So we currently are in partnerships with all 6 local Lorraine libraries have Nalox boxes on site, all of the metropolitan housing associations, multiple churches, Nord Center, Let's Get Real, a couple of the campgrounds, a few of the township buildings that have those on site. Almost all of our public schools obviously are some of our big ones that have it. Some of the grant funding also helps with a lot of our bigger community projects, like we have coming up next is Chocolate Walk, which is our substance use awareness day. I believe that is August 17th in Union Square in Elyria. This will be our 3rd year doing this, I believe. Yeah, we have 2 years in a row. And then it'll also help us staff and provide Narcan for our street outreach, which will be in September again this year. I think we have a tentative date of like the 27th, but that's not hard to pass. So I will share that firm date when we have it. But that's where we go door to door in the kind of what I call hotspots. We use our GIS mapping to track where the overdoses are occurring in the county, and then we focus on those areas like pretty much saturated in the neighborhoods. We get volunteers to come out, and we walk in neighborhoods offering Narcan right on the spot for people. If not, we give them a QR code so they can scan it and get it mailed in. So we've been doing a lot of great work on that. Again, that kind of helps us align some of our chip strategies that we're with that. So.
Was there a reason why everyone went up to get like a Narcan kit?
Oh, we did. We actually had training, sent out the email. Mary came to it.
I'll go training.
Okay.
I can bring some next month too, again.
I'm gonna need training.
Yeah, we have the video. I just sent the link to Mary, and she comes in, does a little quick thing, and then we send the link that you just gotta watch it.
You think you should just do that more next week and give everybody a kit?
We need continuing ed, don't we? Yeah, could that be one?
Wouldn't that be
could
continuing ed?
Okay, continuing ed.
There you go. You'll be on again next year.
Does that count for my report next week?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
Part 2.
That will be your continuing ed this next one. All right. And with his first report, Mitch, standing in for Jill, go for it.
Hey everyone, supervisor of epidemiology. I did not anticipate the timer, so. Just in touch. Yeah. So something that's exciting that's happening in Epi right now, I'm glad Joanne mentioned it, but the GIS mapping. It's actually leveraging these tools to assist other programs with planning and outreach. Relatively new for this agency. We do have the staff capabilities and the software to really implement this mapping software to really help programs. And I'll give 2 practical examples of it because this is actually more exciting than it sounds. We've recently been working with environmental health with their vector-borne illness programs. So what we want to do is kind of have some foresight for these programs as new summers come, new populations of mosquitoes and ticks come, new weather patterns come, migration increases, and tourism, all that. So for mosquito programming, it's more about the abatement of the mosquitoes. So what we would do is use their breeding site data to map out, and what they collect in the breeding site data would be the species collected, the frequency. So if we were to see in certain breeding sites where the species of mosquito that carries the cross encephalitis, that's a frequent breeding site every single summer, what we can actually do is start mapping radius around these points to kind of project how far the adult mosquitoes will be able to fly from those breeding sites. And then within, using this data over time, we can kind of see where these circles would overlap. And, if it was the Aedes mosquito that carries the lacrosse encephalitis, it'd be pertinent to know, are there any daycares, are there any schools, any summer camps within these flight areas? And that way they can prioritize abatement. If lacrosse encephalitis ever started creeping up into the region, which you know how some of those come and go. Same with West Nile, it would just be kind of the inverse. The highest population there are older adults. So again, just how far can these mosquitoes fly? Where are the frequent breeding sites? How dependent is it on weather? And then who lives in these circles? What entities are in these circles? Are there retirement homes? Are there event centers? Things like that really help the abatement of mosquitoes when they're prioritizing adult spraying. So just giving some foresight and knowledge into some of these programs. And then Lyme disease is going to be a hot topic going forward. I believe the Ohio Department of Health said there's a 35-fold increase in Lyme disease cases since 2012. So that went from about 30 Lyme disease cases in Ohio in 2012 to over 1,000 in 2023. Carried by the black-legged mosquito, tick. This is less about abatement, but more preparation on community outreach and some education opportunities. So we would use data from we interview our Lyme disease cases to determine whether or not they came from out of county or if it was locally acquired. We are actually seeing some locally acquired cases, which is new, very new. Lorain County, probable and confirmed cases was over 20 since 2020. From 2010 to 2020, there was 3. So not all of those were locally acquired. Vast majority were not locally acquired, but we do see some locally acquired Lyme disease. So using data from those interviews, I think Greg talked about tick trapping last week. Using that information and then also some passive surveillance where they've really stepped up efforts with people calling in and saying, hey, I got a tick, and bring it in to identify the species. So using all that information, we can really see within the county where transmission would be most likely to be happening if it was, if Lyme disease ever became very prevalent within the county. So those are just some practical examples of using it for planning for environmental health, but the mapping capabilities, I don't know how to use the software, but I hired somebody that did on purpose, and it can do great things for all sorts of programs. She talked about the Narcan, identifying hotspots. We're going to try to begin a pretty massive cancer surveillance project with it. We are an aging population, so there are more cancer cases, but we're seeing an uptick in people calling in with cancer concerns, saying, I know this person on my road, they all have cancer. More times than not, that's going to be due to chance. But we want to be proactive. We are using this GIS software for mapping. We can actually communicate very well whether or not that would be an unusual pattern of cancer that they're seeing, or if it was determined to be a cancer cluster, what environmental sources are around there. So that's in its very infant stages. We are going to apply for a grant. Hopefully that can pay for some of that work. So that's what's doing exciting and nothing right now. Is just getting that GIS software going.
There's nothing that I can, there's nothing I can add to it. I have no report. They're the ones who do the work.
Motion to leadership report.
Aye.
Excellent report to everybody. Now we move to executive session.
Hi, everybody. Ross Marley here. What you've witnessed so far is the Lorraine County Board of Health monthly meeting. It occurs the first Wednesday, rather the second Wednesday of each month. I did attend this meeting last month, and I did make statements to the board. I intend to follow up my statements. Lots happened in the last month. What you heard was their typical meeting, their typical dialogue, and there are some good things. There's some things not so good. But Dave Roberts had presented a notice to this board, and I'm here today to follow up with them, kind of clarify with them what this notice is all about. So after this executive session, where they boot out anybody who's not on the board, again, they have the right to do that. When invited back in, I'll be happy to show up. They'll open up the floor to comments, and since I am the only member of the public here, I'll be first and only to speak. So stay tuned for these comments. I'm going to stay live for a minute and continue talking. I know no one's online here with me, and of course, if anybody does chime in and have any comments, Angela asked, are you in school? No, we're at the Lorraine County Board of Health. And Amanda says, hey, what's going down? Yeah, Amanda, you know this meeting, you've been here. It's the same old, same old. What we have are a bunch of executives. I repeat, we have a group of executives. According to the Constitution, these executives are to be bound to the Constitution. These executives have admitted they've got no bonds and no oaths. So they qualify themselves as immune to anything we might say. They've also probably felt that in recent cases, and I say recent, between 1984 and this year, they have successfully been able to argue their policies in court. But something interesting did happen on June 30th, 2024. Something very interesting. The Supreme Court of the United States overthrew the Chevron decision. The Chevron doctrine had been in place since 1984. What is the Chevron doctrine? The Chevron doctrine simply was a Supreme Court ruling that it informed the courts, that told the courts, that had the courts hear cases on policy arguments. Shortly after 1984, we saw the EPA start loading up with lawyers. They started going after everybody because they knew they could argue their policies in court, win. Call it tyranny, call it taxation without representation. I call it wrong because it wasn't lawful. It was based on policies that men and women don't have a right to vote on. These are agencies that are acting out of line. And no one's been able to correct them since the Chevron doctrine. But now that that's overturned, I'm going to walk back in there today. I'm going to remind everybody what the Chevron doctrine was all about. I'm going to remind everybody that courts are now going to hear arguments on legislation. Whatever the law is what we can argue in court. Their policies are no longer valid as arguments in court. Now, what happened over here in Lorraine County? They decided that an assessment was necessary. They decided that the database of, we'll say, older septic systems in the county did not exist. They decided that since state law dictates that they create a database, that they were going to use their executive powers and charge, tax, levy, whatever you want to call it, draw money out of the residents of Lorraine County for this assessment. With like over $200, like $250 from every resident. Yeah, they mailed them something on their bill and they say, hey, you got to pay more because we need to do an assessment. It'll take us maybe 3 years, but you got to pay us now. So they take this money and they put it in a bank and it accrues interest for them. And who knows what they do with this money? Who knows where they came up with the money? Mark Adams tried to explain that to us, and maybe he's accurate with this point. Bottom line here is, as executives who did not take an oath, as executives who are not bound to the Constitution, they have no bond. There's no bondsman who found an underwriter, an insurance company, to be sure that there is insurance for the people, that if these men and women, these executives, violate their executive authority, that there is recourse, there are suits, but they refuse to be bound. So I'm going to remind them today when I go back in there that they are in violation of what is written in Article 6 of the Constitution. They are not bound by their own admission to the Constitution. And Dave Roberts presented them with a notice that they need to vacate their seats. Now, I'm not going to go in there and tell them, y'all need to leave. I'm going to let them know, as a friend, you need to consider what just happened with the Supreme Court. And I'll remind them of another Supreme Court decision that occurred earlier this year. And that decision was the Trump decision. Quite simply, Donald Trump did not violate the Constitution. Therefore, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Donald Trump did not lose his immunity. So with that Trump decision, it's very important that this board understands that if they're in violation of the Constitution, specifically Article 6, where all executives must be bound to the Constitution, that they've lost their immunity. So you're not immune. You can't argue your policy. You've been in receipt of 3 notices, 2 or 3 notices from people of Lorain County regarding quo warranto. What's quo warranto? Regarding their assessment. Quo warranto is a Latin term, and it means you vacate your position, right? This is a warrant issued by the people. And so the people of Lorain County have issued a warrant to the men and women of this board that you're to vacate your seats immediately. Now, we expect them to ignore these notices. And when I go back in there very soon, I intend to speak as a friend, as someone with knowledge that they may not have. I'm going to share these points that I've just shared with you. And perhaps they'll ignore me as they ignored Dave Roberts and the men and women of Lorain County who have signed notices. Or perhaps they'll listen. It's up to them. But I'll be at peace knowing that I gave them warning, fair warning, as to what has changed in the last 30 days. So I'm going to go silent here. I'm going to mill around as I see some board members are still out in the hall. And again, there are assistants here who do not have the voting authority on the board. They, as well as me, have left the building, left the meeting. An executive session is a private session. The executive session is to discuss some matter in court, and by all means, they don't need to have that type of business public. So we're going to give them their last note here, their agenda point, which is the executive session, and we're pretty close. Let's just review the agenda just so we know what's happened here. So again, if we do review their agenda, we're on number 11, the executive session, which is needed today. Once they vote, we're on to 12 comments, and I'm the only one here to make a comment, and then the meeting's adjourned. So, I've been here recording for about 49 minutes, and continue to record until this session's over. I'll probably go inside because today is July the 10th, 2024, and it's about 68 degrees outside, and I don't have a coat, and it's a little windy and cloudy and rainy, so I may go in a building where it was comfortably warm. Again, thank you very much to those people. I did go to the Lorain County Public Health website, and I really wanted to look at their annual report, but I went to their About page, and it's like, oh, so what are we about? What are we about? And I noticed on the page that they're all about wincing children wearing suffocation devices. It appears as though this child's receiving some sort of genetic therapy shot against their will. I guess that was what they're all about, is to is sterilize children in this manner, because I like the idea of cleaning up rivers and streams. I like the idea of no raw sewage pouring out. They do a lot of good things, but the harm of children, well, that's a topic for a different day. Another interesting thing is that they did give the top causes of death in 2023: heart disease, cancer, accidents, chronic lower respiratory disease, stroke, and Alzheimer's disease. So, I don't see, lower respiratory disease could be a radiation sickness a symptom, or it could be a result of radiation sickness. But I fully believe that this isn't necessary anymore, especially since the CDC has stated that ivermectin is okay to use if someone should have symptoms very similar to radiation sickness that they may think are symptoms of something else. With that, and with the great people on YouTube who permit me to broadcast live, I want to thank YouTube for this opportunity. I do want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak here. So still checking here. I'm going to look over my shoulder to see if we have any. Oh, you know what? Let's get into the annual report, because there's one thing here on this report. Funding sources: grants in 2023, $7,007,500 granted. I wonder if that money came from some benevolent man or woman here in Lorain County, out of their own pocket. Oh, here's $7 million to the board. You guys are doing a great job. Even if I had that kind of money to throw around, I don't think they're worth that much. But again, they received that money. What are the chances that money came from the federal government? I mean, if that is the case, well then, don't tell me about Ohio law, because you've now engaged in a quid pro quo with the federal government. You are now bound by the Constitution on what you do, because you've accepted federal money. What if they tell me in there that all that grant money did come from Lorain County? None of it was taxpayer money. There is no misuse of taxpayer money. What if they tell me that? Well, then I'll ask them about the assessment. I'll ask them if they hand-delivered the assessments to all the residents of the county, because you and I know they didn't do that. You and I know that they contracted with the U.S. Mail to get those assessments into the mailboxes of the men and women in this county who have septic systems. And by contracting with the U.S. Mail, this is now a federal issue. So the grant question is really there just to put it out there. But as goes, questions and answers. You always need to ask questions that you know the answers to. I honestly don't know the answer of the grant money. I really don't care what the answer is, because I know that they mailed out the assessments. I know that they're they used a contract with the federal government to assess money, an assessment fee to all the residents who have septic systems, so that they can send somebody from the health department onto the property of these men and women, so they can scrutinize how well they maintain their sewage systems. Last month when I spoke, and it's on Rumble, you can see it, and Vandersteel's Rumble. There was a live stream. Thank you to Amanda, Joan Quimper, for her live streaming. She did a wonderful job. I did ask the board, have any of you gone driving out in the rural parts of the county? Have any of you driven around at night and smelled what may be similar to that of a third world country, some sort of hideous odor coming from, because people aren't able to take care of their own waste. Crickets, that's what I got. Nobody said that there was a problem, but they all decided to spend money to go figure out if a problem exists, because the state law tells them to. So they've stepped in it basically over here. And I know I'm just killing some time, and I said I'd go silent, and you're still listening to me talk. But just keep my eye on some of the members who are milling about, see if they're going to return into executive session. I'm going to walk in. I'm going to walk up and down the hall, and I'm going to remain silent. So let's flip it back, and oopsie. There we go. So we'll head on back in.
Back to you, Greg.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
You got it.
Any motions that everybody wants to present?
I'd like to make a motion for legal counsel to pursue legal action. And discuss it with the council.
All right, properly moved by Ed. Seconded by Eric.
Is there a roll?
It's up to you, if you want to do a roll or not. You can either do
Yeah,
a voice
let's do a
vote.
roll.
Okay. Mr. Estridge?
Yes.
Dr. Conley?
Yes.
Dr. Schroll?
Yes.
Mrs. McIntyre Farms?
Yes.
Mr. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Dr. Leonard?
Yes.
Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion for legal counsel to discuss with the county commissioner's office of hearing.
Properly moved by Ed, seconded by Kiana. Also make that a roll.
Mr. Estridge?
Yes.
Dr. Conley?
Yes.
Dr. Schroll?
Yes.
Mr. McIntyre Farms?
Yes.
Mr. McNamara?
Yes.
Mr. Piper?
Yes.
Dr. Leonard?
Yes.
And
There you go, sir. All right, we're gonna move on to public comment. We have a sign-in sheet.
we do.
So, public comment can, or may, be made by each citizen in attendance at the board meeting. It's limited to 3 minutes speaking time. More time may be granted by the president of the board. A citizen should sign in with their name and address to be recognized by the board's chair. When recognized by the board's president, the citizen should stand and be asked to state their name and address. The citizen may then make a comment to the board. Public comments should not be made that are disruptive to board business, i.e. simple attacks, and not related to board business. Any disruption will be out of order, clearly unacceptable, and may result in removal from the meeting. Public comment time cannot be passed on or donated to other participants.
I don't think you're gonna be passing it on.
Hi, Ross.
Hi, Ross Marley, 22 Leonard Avenue. I just want to thank Mark Adams for allowing public comments, and the rest of the board. I do thank you very much. I'm really grateful for what you do. I mean, there's a lot happening and a lot of health concerns, and you're addressing this all in departments. On a personal note, Mary, I just want to thank the Narcan. I personally thank you for that, because I've heard from third-party sources that my own daughter has been Narcaned in this county more than one time. I don't know details, but I know to thank you for making sure that's out on the street. There's still hope for her, and it's because people like you and other men and women on this board are doing what you do. I thank you very much. You know, I did speak at the last meeting, and I do recall there were a lot more men and women here at that time. And I do recall Dave Roberts did hand you a notice. And I'm here today as a friend, as just I guess a knowledge share member of the public here, just to kind of clarify what that notice was about. Just in case you got it and weren't clear on what he was trying to say. You had disclosed to his group in the past that there were no oaths or bonds necessary for the executives here on this board. And Dave kind of shot back and said, look, I've got a claim, because he pointed to Article 6 of the Constitution. All executives are to be bound to the Constitution, which means you need to have a bond. A bondsman needs to contact an underwriter, and there needs to be an insurance policy. The assessments, right? They were sent out, U.S. Mail, to the residents, and they responded. They came here and they gave you, their opinions, how they felt that it was not warranted. So Dave Roberts came in, and he basically, what he said was, take it back or step away. He kind of basically told you, I'm going to take you to court. Now, since 1984, agencies like this, you've been able to argue your policies in court, and you've been winning. In fact, in 1984, after court ruled on Chevron, the Chevron doctrine became a real thing. EPA started hiring lawyers, and quite successfully, the EPA began winning a lot of cases in courts with these lawyers. But something interesting did happen on June 30th. The Supreme Court of the United States did overturn the Chevron doctrine. What they basically said, and what I'm here today to tell you, is basic change. Courts no longer hear cases on policy arguments. Courts now hear cases on legislative arguments. So when Dave points to the Constitution, his claims now have a little different standing than they did a month ago. So I just wanted to address the board as a friend, as someone who just wants to share knowledge. Again, thank you for hearing me. But he also used terms like a quo warranto, and these are Latin terms used by men and women who study law, apply law. And quo warranto, it's basically a warrant from the people. Now, the people of Lorain County, they did assemble, as they're free to do, and they actually settled on the land here in Lorain County. So what do I mean by settled on the land? Well, they followed a common law procedure where there is a covenant, an agreement that they have adopted, and they took an oath to that agreement. And the agreement is that we exist in peace, right? So they, as a peaceful, assembled group, they just wanted to appear. They read that preamble and Article 1 of that covenant on the courthouse steps in Elyria. Where the courthouse is, Lorain or Elyria, I'm not sure where the seat is here. Elyria. They went to the courthouse steps, and 3 men and women read that. One read, the preamble, Article 1. The next one read, and a third one read. They returned a week later. They read it again, out loud, at the same time, on the courthouse steps, while the court was in session. They did it a third week in a row. Then they went and they had all their signatures and their covenant. They presented it on a docket and had it stamped, and they had a stamped copy from the court that said that they have settled. They presented this to the county board at the meeting with the executives. I don't know if they have trustees, Board of Commissioners. They presented it to them, and they stated Lorain County is now de jure, another Latin term, right? De jure means of law. We are now of law. And the other term is, and again, this is just Latin. They use the term de facto to describe the government that exists by fact versus the government that exists by law. So I don't want to get into Latin here with everybody, but I just want to say that this group, this assembly in Lorain County, again, I live in Summit County. I'm not a member of that Lorain County group. They see themselves, and they have announced themselves as the de jure government, the government of the people. Now, if you go back to 1992, there was another Supreme Court case, and I'll wrap up here real quick. This was United States versus Williams. And Scalia, in his majority opinion, stated that when the de jure appears, the de facto steps down. I'm simply quoting a Supreme Court justice here, okay? I'm not making this up. So we talk about the Chevron Supreme Court case, and we talk about the United States versus Williams case. There is one other case, and I'll wrap up right now. It was a recent case this year with Trump, and it was determined that does Trump have immunity, yes or no? And the Supreme Court said Trump did not violate the Constitution. He did not do anything against the Constitution. Therefore, he maintains his immunity. So when I go back to Article 6, and as a friend of everybody here on the board, as just someone who wants to share knowledge, I don't know how Dave Roberts' case is going to be heard. I don't know what decisions the judge is going to make. But I wanted these 3 SCOTUS decisions to be announced in public to this board, so you're aware what others who practice law may or may not be aware of. I thank you all for the count. Again, Mary, personal thank you to you. Mark, thank you for, again, having public comments. Thank you for letting me go a little bit long. And if you have any questions for me, I do have just one other question. I went to the website and saw your annual report, and it said the grants, there was $7 million in grants. By chance, I gather some of that might have been federal money.
Federal and, well, yeah, federal and state.
So, you know, another Latin term coming up here, warning, there was a quid pro quo, right? You agreed to accept that money from the feds. Therefore, the Ohio state laws that you follow, very well, Mark, you now are subject to the laws of the federal government as you accepted federal money for your operation. So I just want to explain these things. Again, I'm not here to say run and hide. I'm not here to say that bad things are going to happen. I'm here to say that Dave Roberts may not have sounded like he was going to have any traction, but I just want you to think about some of these comments I've made today. And again, millions of thanks for the opportunity to speak to you, Mark.
Side note, that's Joanne.
I'm sorry, Joanne, I'm sorry. I
don't offer anything, and the board is the one that does the comments.
Again, just some comments to the executives in the room. Again, thank you all for what you do and your service.
All right, there's nobody else on the list, so we'll go to moved by Ed. All in favor?
Thanks to all of you who watched this. Looks like I got a comment here from Amanda, and I apologize. If there was something I should have said, I did not have the cheaters on. I didn't know what was going on. So, nice job. Well, thanks, Amanda. Everybody always likes an accolade. So we're going to wrap up here. It's been, well, now I've been live for 39 minutes. That doesn't make sense. It seemed to be longer than that. Anyway, send a comment. I'll check comments in the future, and we'll see how the board responds to my comments. You all have a good day. How do we end this meeting? How do we end this? Let's see. X, I think it's X. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? I do want to stop streaming. Everybody have a great day. This is Ross Marley, and you just got the love.